Hi, I'm Elizabeth Steinberg from Friends of Motion, and today I'm going to show you how to build the scene in Cinema 4D R26 using absolutely no fancy plugins. It's just simple emitter and a tracer. I'll also show you how to set up the camera to get some nice depth of field and render it out. And stick around to the end because I'll also show you how to bake the simulation and export as an Alembic so that you can bring it into any other project and have the ability to scrub around the timeline and preserve the cache of the simulation. So with that said, let's jump in. Great, so I'm in Cinema 4D R26. First thing I will do is go to my render settings and make sure I'm in Redshift. Now I have a quick startup that I have here. Usually your setup will be there in this default render settings, but mine, and just quickly run through this, it would be samplings will be very low, motion blur will be off, globals will be, I think this is just standard default, global illumination will be on, caustics will be off, AOVs disabled, optimization, I didn't touch anything here yet. Systems, I haven't touched anything, or I don't think so, but this is basically my setup. Then next, I will create 3 nulls. And the first null would be the stage. Then I have the lights and cameras. And then I have object. So I'm going to start with an emitter. Emitter can be found here, simulate emitter. Another way to get to the emitter is just to press Shift-C and start typing, and you'll get the emitter. This is a really great shortcut for finding anything, and I use it quite a lot. With the emitter, we are going to have a setting for 2 centimeters by 100, and the particles will be 10,000 by 10,000. Let me show you. Great. We also want it only to shoot out 1 frame and the speed around 20 for now. That will just shoot once and then stop emitting. Next, I'm adding a tracer. Let's see, tracer. And I want the tracer to trace the emitter. So I'm going to say, I'm going to drag this emitter inside here. That means it's going to start tracing the emitter from the place where it is spawned. So to get these nice wavy shapes, we will need turbulence. And turbulence, we can find here in Simulate, Forces, Turbulence. And let's go back to the beginning. You will see that it's the default setting will give you these little tiny vibrations. But to get those huge waves and bigger organic shapes, we will add a bit of scale, 20%. Let's see. Yeah, very nice. And at this point, this is what we need. And I think we don't need to tweak anymore, but we can always come back and tweak. But for this tutorial, this is good enough. Next would be the setting of the geometry and starting to see it in Redshift. Before we start with the Redshift tags, let's get the render viewer. It's in Windows, render viewer. And I usually like to just add it at the bottom here. Next, we're going to create the geometry for the lines. I'm clicking on the tracer and I go right click, render tags, RS object. Now this RS object tag, render shift object tag, will pick up whatever you put it on. So you'll see if I put it on emitter, it will create particles instead of curves. If I put it on the tracer, particles tab gets replaced with a curve tab. So this is quite a powerful tag. You can literally put almost anything on these lines. For now, I'm just going to use the default built-in options And this will be capsules, because capsules is very nice and round and at the ends, and it gives a nice organic feel. Let's see what that looks like in the render view. So I'm going to press the play button. There you can see the renders already. One thing I would like to create a little bit more organic shape. So in the capsule profile shape, I am going to make the beginning a little thinner so that it's not so uniform in shape. Nice. Next is to show you in the render, we have these little stamen, little tiny pollen, if this was a flower, little pollen balls for a lack of a different word. And I'm going to show you now how to add those. There are actually two ways, and I've tried both, and I'll first show you the easy way. Easy way is just to add another Redshift tag onto the emitter and tell the emitter to make particles just spheres. So I'm going to add spheres. And you will see that spheres will appear exactly where the emitter is. And if I simulate it, you will see they will grow as the lines are growing. And that is perfectly fine. But if you want to have some control over the balls, like make them a little different in sizes, this method won't work, or I couldn't figure out a quick way to make it work. So I'll show you my way, and then maybe there is some other ways, but this is for me the quickest way that I could figure it out. Just to make it clear to see what we're doing, I'm going to add I'm going to create a new layout, just having my Redshift a little bigger in the middle. And we are going to start off with cloner. Cloner, and a sphere. And the sphere is small, 12. Make it 5, 4. And the cloner, I'm going to tell it to be an object. And the balls need to be cloned onto an object, and the object it needs to clone onto is the splines from the tracer. And as you can see, it is literally tracing all the way through all the splines, and I just want one count. And I want it to be at the end of the splines. I'm changing the offset all the way to the end. I'm not going to loop it. And I tried this before and 100% didn't quite work, so I made it 99.99. So let's see what that looks like. Very nice. And those balls are really big, so let's make them smaller. Nice. All right, so let me just make sure we have the right simulation. So as you can see, the reason I did it this way is so that we can change the spheres to be different sizes. And I'm going to do that by adding a random effector. It's also, you can get it here, MoGraph effectors, random effector. And I want the parameters to be just a scale and an uniform scale. And let's make it 1. And then we can change the spheres to be a little smaller. 3.6. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Let me random community. Good. Let me render it out to make sure everything is rendering nicely. Perfect. All right, now we can start with the fun, the coloring and the lighting. So the next step is going to be that. One of my favorite things of the new R26 is this content browser that is so easy now. And I'm going to grab a few things that's going to make our life so much easier. The first is going to be Redshift materials. And what I love about this is you can start with something that's similar to what you want, and then you can tweak it and make it yourself, make it your own. I am first going to pick this. This is plaster that I like, so I'm going to add it to my material browser here. Just drag it. I think if you just double click it also works. I'm also going to get, while I'm here, going to get an HDRI for our lights. So the first light I'm add is the dome light. Right? And dome light. And the dome light, I'm going to type in HDR media, and picking is so many, and you can really tweak until the cows come home on these once you start picking them, but I will just pick what I think worked pretty well, and it was this, I think it was this one. I also don't want to see it, so I'm switching off the background. Nice, and I also want a backdrop. I'm adding a plane. Plane needs to face me. And let me just switch this off. Back. And can move the dome light just a little bit so that you can have a nice directional light. Yeah, that's nice. Great. And I also created just an area light at the top. You don't really need this, but sometimes I feel an area light actually helps a lot with just manually move shadows where you should have shadows. Okay. R to rotate. E to move. Oof, that is very hot. So I am going to bring the intensity way down. Way down. And add a teeny tiny bit of blue in the color. It could also be yellow, but it's super tiny. You know, it's really just a hint. All right, nice. This looks pretty good. Next, I am going to add the materials for the spline and the clones, the little tiny balls. The plaster and the rough and the fine plaster I earmarked for the background. So let's add that to the plane at the background. And for the splines and the balls, I'm going to add the new Redshift material, standard material. Redshift material, standard here at the bottom. And the thing I'm going to do is just taking the roughness way off. The color is another cool little thing for R26. You right click, add a connection node, and then texture and a ramp. So this one, first one is going to be our ramp. And the ramp, I am just quickly going to pick one of these presets we have, and just adding the bright hot pinkish color at the end. Add a little bit of have purple, blue. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to add that to the tracer. Simulate to see. I might need to move the ramp a little. I don't see the pink. Move that up a little. Yeah, great. The next one, I'm going to control drag this, and to duplicate. And then I don't need a ramp anymore. Right click, remove, and just make this really nice red. Okay, adding it to the cloners. And there you are. And at this point, I think you can probably take off and go create some wonderful things. But as you probably already realized is if you scrub around the timeline, it's gonna go crazy. And you're definitely going to need to be able to bake this and cache all the simulations. So next step is to show you how to cache and bake this. I go back to the beginning. And by the way, I've tried other ways and this is the only way I could figure it out. But if you know of any other ways, it would be very helpful if you could tell me. So what I did was I selected the first grouped the hair, call it hair, and I exported it as a Olympic. Very easy. Make sure selection is on. Make sure global coordinates is not on. I made mistake before. And particles, I think that was off, but we can always delete it if it's wrong. So I did that, saved it. Then let's just save it as a new one, save incremental. Then I brought it back in as an ABC, a limbic. Save, merge project. This one. Everything's set the same. And let me just switch everything off so we have a clean. And there we go. That is our simulation. So right now the simulation is not going to render because you first need to tell it what it is. And actually we can delete the emitter. What I did was I just took these and I just dragged them onto my tracer and I deleted. You can delete there or hide it, but let's keep it clean. And voila, there you have it. And now you can actually scrub willy-nilly as much as you want. Awesome. Now the one thing I couldn't figure out was the cloners. I didn't know how to make them into the limbic. My solution was to take the cloner and just retrace this tracer. And it worked perfectly. And there you have it. I know it doesn't quite look like the render, and I think the lines are thicker and also I simulated more particles, but you can play around and create your own unique art. I want to quickly show you how the camera setup is. So my setup, oh no, I can do it. So I'm going to create a camera, add it to my cameras, and then create a camera tag called RS camera. Make sure you look through that camera because right now I've been looking through the default stage camera. And where the magic happens is in this tab bokeh. I'm going to enable it. You'll see immediately there's already a distance, a focus difference. And to get the focus where you want it, you press on this little icon and just click on an area you want to keep in focus. So just click, and then here you can decide how far you want the power, how dramatic you want the focus. I like this middle one, focus distance, so that you can pick the focus distance and then have more fine-tuning. I never usually change this aspect, but you can just slide around and see what works for you. So that is it. Let me quickly show you how to add the text. If you want to stick around, I'm going to just move all these things, area light into lights and stage. The text, I'm using this extrusion text object and pick a nice symmetrical A and maybe something like, there we go. And just move it so it looks like it's coming out of the A. And then I just added this plaster fine that was from the content browser. And the idea is just so that it sort of blend into the background, and it's more about the negative space. Let's focus in on it again. And you can play around with that. Maybe add a teeny tiny caps on the roundness on the cat, like a 0.1, just a little closer. And there you go. Okay, so thank you so much for sticking along with me. This is my first tutorial, so I am a little green and I can hear my audio has some hiccups that I will need to figure out in the future, but I would love some comments and suggestions and how to make this better. And if there is anything that you need help with, let me know. I would love to make more of these tutorials and make something that's useful and save people time, especially if you're new at cinema. And yeah, stay tuned. Hope to see you soon in the next one. Thank you.